Does the government work for us or do we work for the government? Here we go again. As of this coming Saturday, the federal government will have no budget in place and thus no lawful power to spend money. Tonight, how did we get to this? No one could run a business the way the Congress and the President run the federal government. Even though the House of Representatives is controlled by the Republicans, and even though the Senate's rules permit the Republicans to stop the President and the Democrats in their tracks, the Congress and the President spend $1.5 trillion more than they take in each year, and they do so in 6-month increments. It seems like it was just last week that we all watched the battle of the budget on Capitol Hill. Even though many Tea Party Republicans claim that they are for sound money and for small government, every 6 months, many of them vote to let the government spend money it doesn't have on programs nowhere even hinted at in the Constitution. The federal government is one of limited powers. It was created by the states, not the other way around, when the states which preceded its existence and which joined the Union throughout our history delegated some of their sovereign powers to the federal government. In creating the federal government, unlike in the British Empire from which we had just seceded, the states wrote down on a piece of paper just what powers the federal government was to have and just how those powers were to have been exercised. That piece of paper, of course, is the Constitution. And it lists the 17 powers that the states have delegated to the federal government. It also lists in the Bill of Rights the areas of human behavior immune from government regulation. And in the 10th Amendment, that's the one the big government folks in both parties fear and hate the most, it declares that those powers not given to the federal government on that list are retained by the states. All of this leads us to an examination of the proper role of the federal government in our lives and whether we can live our day-to-day lives without it. Freedom Watch enjoys testing the fidelity of self-proclaimed small government Republicans to the concept of requiring the federal government to reside within the confines of the Constitution. Sadly, most of them are wanting in their understanding of the Constitution, wanting in their fidelity to it, and wanting to keep their jobs in Congress. The metaphor here is FEMA. That's the Federal Emergency Management Agency. No sound person wants to see another person suffer, and we all feel empty and sad when another does. And most of our hearts induce a natural sense of charity when tragedy happens. But that doesn't mean that the federal government should use the force of guns to take money from us and to compensate those who have suffered losses because of the force of nature. Stated differently, there is no authorization in the Constitution for the feds to protect people from natural disasters or to compensate them afterwards. Just because it is the right thing to do doesn't mean that the federal government is authorized to do it. I repeat, just because it is the right thing to do doesn't mean that the federal government is authorized to do it. If that were the standard, the right thing to do, and the feds could use it as a basis for taxing, spending, and regulating, then the constitutional limitations on the federal government and the constitutional protections of our personal liberties would be meaningless. All this brings us back to the budget. It is precisely because we have allowed the feds to tax and spend and regulate in so many areas of our lives that the feds have thought is the right thing to do, but the Constitution doesn't authorize them to do, that many folks fear a government shutdown. They fear a government shutdown because they've become dependent upon the federal government. And of course, a shutdown easily becomes a political football as to who caused it. Small government Republicans wanting to keep the government within the confines of the Constitution, or big government types wanting to use the force of government to do the right thing, whether authorized by the Constitution or not. What can we do? We need a new president who will upset the status quo. We need a game changer. We need someone who will shrink the federal government and sever the dependence that so many have on it. Then it can live within its means, and we can live with more freedom and prosperity. From New York, defending freedom